what were some of any of the standout guests from those early days? You're like, oh, that was a powerful conversation. Any spring to mind?
Well, all of the conversations were great, and I learned something from all of them. But one that really has to be right up there at the top is Dr. Gary Klein, one of the leading cognitive psychologists in the world, the father of naturalistic decision making, and the creator of one of my favorite red teaming tools, premortem analysis. And I had a great conversation with Gary. It was pretty early in the pandemic, and we spent the conversation talking about how to navigate as a leader this crazy world that we were all in. And we had a wonderful conversation. And the thing that I still tell people, I still tell leaders today, that Gary said in that conversation was, he says, there's two things that you can't do as a leader right now. And it's still true. He said, one is you can't wait and see what happens. And this was a while ago. He's like, you can't wait and see what happens, because this he said back then, he said, this pandemic we're not going to be out the other side of this for a long time. And the disruption that it's created is going to continue as well, even if the pandemic ends. So you can't sit on the sidelines and wait. You have to think about how you're going to readjust your organization to meet these challenges. But the other thing he said you can't do, James, is you can't gather your team together, come up with a plan about how you're going to deal with the challenges you're facing, make a decision on it, and then go play golf. Because odds are, with the world changing as fast as it is now, that by the time you send out the memo to your team saying, this is what we decided, let's do X, Y, and Z, something else has happened, and Z no longer makes sense. Now you have to do alpha or A. And his point was that you have to recognize as a leader that you're not, the decision making is not a linear process that has a start and a stop. It's something you have to keep doing, keep adjusting, keep correcting course, like a blind man trying to cross the street with a cane, tapping in front of you saying, okay, all good here, all good here. Well, all of a sudden there's a pothole in front of me here. So I need to either go right or left. So I'm going to tap here. I'm going to go left. I go left. Okay, now I can keep going forward, but I hear a car coming. I better stop for a second, let that car pass. And, hopefully you make it to the other side of the street in one piece. That's how leaders have to deal with this crazy world that we live in, this VUCA world we live in today. So that was a big one, Dr. Gary Klein. And similarly, related to that, we had Dave Snowden on, the creator of the Cynefin framework, which is one of my favorite tools. And Dave and I talked about the same topic, about how to make decisions in this amazingly complex world we live in. And he talked about the proper role of a leader in crisis is to make a few big decisions up front and then get out of the way and let the team execute those. Because if you keep being the one who has to decide everything, you're going to slow down decision making at a time when it needs to be rapid. So he gave the example at the time. He said that he thought that, and I still think this, the country that was handling the pandemic the best and the leader who had done the best job handling it was Jacinda. What's her last name?
Oh, from New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. And he pointed out that, first weeks of the pandemic, she basically broke the law and said, I don't have the authority to do these things, but we're going to shut down, travel. We're going to do all of this stuff. And then she got out of the way and let the apparatus of government do these things. And I know that I have cousins in New Zealand and they complain about, how restrictive things got there. But at the same time, they had a handful of people die from COVID and their economy didn't tank. And, that's a pretty enviable place to be compared to the rest of us in the US and the UK and elsewhere, where our economy's in tatters and a staggering number of people have died, over 1 million people in the US alone. And so that was a great conversation too. And that's the thing. These are, even though that was, about 2 years ago, we had that conversation, that advice is still relevant today to leaders dealing with crises.